It's finally here. Oh, 14 years of waiting. It was worth it. Hello, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Clint Zucker. Welcome to another My Thoughts on. Today, are we talking about The Incredibles 2? Woo-hoo-hoo! Sorry if I sound really excited, but I've been waiting 14 years for this sequel, and it's finally here. I went to go and see it last night, July 14th. It got released on the 13th, which doesn't mean it's always bad luck. So, I think it's best if I just give you a quick summary of what I thought of the first Incredibles. The first Incredibles, I think, is one of the best Pixar films. Maybe in the top 10, maybe like top 6 or something. But I appreciate Brad Bird's work on the first film. It's creative, funny, relatable. It has great animation. Well, back in the day it was released. It has a good score. It has a great villain. It was kind of refreshing, actually. And it wasn't like every other average superhero film. It had good comedy, had good heart. It was actually about family and the family struggling with normal life, than just about superhero stuff. It was really damn good, and I really, really love it. So obviously, knowing that I'm a huge Pixar fan, I will be looking forward to this. Yeah, obviously, yeah, and well, it's here. So what is it all about? What is Incredibles 2 about? Well, basically, if you get Helen voiced by Holly Hunter or Elastigirl, taking Bob or Mr. Incredible's role voiced by Craig T. Nelson, and then you get Bob's taking Helen's role, it's basically the first film, but the roles between Helen and Bob is actually switched. Helen has to go on a secret mission with the help of Winston Devereaux, voiced by Bob Odenkirk, along with the sister voiced by Kathleen Keener. Haha! I didn't say Turner this time, like in my Where the Wild Things Are thoughts on, and Get Out as well. Yepperoonie. Where she has to try and bring villain, trying to bring back heroes, try and make them legal again. Well, at the same time, Bob has to look after the children, Dash, Violet, Jack, who's also got powers. And what Helen has to try and figure out who this evil mastermind named Screenslaver is, controlling everyone and taking over their minds. And that's about it. And to be quite frank, it still worked. The film still kept me engaged, interested, and I never got bored. The movie's also ridiculously funny. Jack's the one that actually gets the most comedy, unlike everyone else. I mean, don't get me wrong, Bob's still funny, Dash is still entertaining. I actually think Violet's probably my favourite out of the Parr family. Helen's great as well, and I'm glad she's got more screen time than the first movie. And the two plots with Bob and Helen is interesting. I actually found Violet's more interesting. And it's executed fantastically with some great writing, great humour, great heart, great action. And, you got new characters that are here to help progress the plot, like Winston Dever. You got his sister Evelyn. You got a couple of other superheroes as well. Ednamo's here as well. Frozen's back. It's all fantastic, and the opening is probably one of the strongest openings I've seen in an animated film. Sure, it does feel a little familiar to the Jack Attack short. Well, when I say familiar, it's exactly the ending of Jack Jack Attack short. If you've seen the opening and the short, you know what I'm talking about. Well, it's still strong. However, and don't worry, I'm not going to bash Brad Bird or any of the writers, but as well executed and as original, yes, you heard me, and as funny as it is and still has the heart, it's a tad incy-wincy formulaic. It has parts of the film where it does feel a little repeated and kind of steals some of its execution from the first film. I won't go into it because it's spoilers, but it just feels familiar, let's say. And the reveal of who Screenslaver is, let's just say it makes the film slightly more predictable. There are scenes in the film that does involve Violet and the problems with Tony, the crush that she has. I mean, yeah, there were a couple of scenes with her that are funny, but especially the one in the restaurant. No, I did find it a little funny, but the audience was just laughing like it's a stand-up comedy. And yes, I like the comedy in this film a lot, but when it tries to be taken seriously and when you want to care for Violet, it just plays it for laughs and it just ruins it kind of ruins what makes them relatable and likable. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still love these characters, but I actually wanted. But I wish they were just taking her subplot a little more seriously. But they did actually end it off quite nicely after a certain incident with Tony and Rick Dicker, who's not voiced by Bud Lucky, rest in peace. He's actually voiced by Jonathan Banks. I'll get more into that. But yeah, as amazing as the plot and its execution is and everything else, it just felt a little formulaic, familiar, and predictable, and sometimes it can rely too much on humour. But besides that, the writing here, let me tell you, it's still strong, it's still got what it takes, it still has what the first Incredibles had. Okay, maybe the first Incredibles did it a little better, but I thought this one did it great as well. With its great plot that has originality, with its actually two sides of the story that actually connect quite well together, and a couple of subplots, or maybe just two, that works just good. And some great action, I think you've got something here. Animation. Come on, it's Pixar. Well, what do you expect? Well, comparing the animation to the first film, it looks better. The animation on the characters may have the same design, but it actually looks so much better with the different textures, with a little updated design on these characters like Dash, Violet, Helen, Bob, Jack, Lucius, and I realise it's Lucius, not Lucas. My bad. The Underminer, Ed the Mode, so many. And they do look much better than the first one. At least the first one actually had great animation back in the day. I mean, to this day, it's not. I mean, it hasn't aged badly. It actually aged good, but it's not amazing. But this animation has greatly improved from the first movie. The new characters like Void, Winston Dever, Eleven Dever, the Screenslaver, the other characters. Their new designs are looking so damn good, and it definitely has Brad Bird all over it, especially Winston's. Winston's is the one I thought looks amazing. Sure, Screenslavers does look a little basic, but it looks cool as well, I guess. The superheroes like Void, Brick, Helix, there's a couple others as well. They look pretty cool as well. The action scenes that involve the characters using powers looks incredible and really creative. No pun intended. The backgrounds look pretty great. They look more down to earth than ever. when the characters do actually move, it may be slightly smooth and common, and it may be slightly smooth and, and slightly cartoony, but it plays it mostly just down to earth, like how actual humans would move, and it's pretty damn impressive, I'll admit. So with great animation, or shall I say incredible and or fantastic animation, with some updated with characters that you know the looks of and have updated designs, with his great background and impressive action scenes, and it actually looks more colourful. The animation still looks fantastic, and well, it's Pixar. What do you expect? And I can definitely say that if there's one of the few things that this film did better than the first one, it's its animation. Characters and acting. I'll start off with my favourite one, and yes, if you've seen my first one, it is Violet, and I know I do still have a little crush on her, but she's the one I can relate to the most. She's the oldest, she's shy, she has boyfriend problems, and I actually do feel for her, and I think she's probably the most relatable character in both films. Especially in the third act, where she actually does take responsibility to look after Jack, and same with Dash as well, but I like Violet the most. But again, her subplot was very interesting, but I didn't really like how it was mostly just played for laughs instead of taking it seriously, and she is a very well fleshed out character, but they could have done better. Helen, or Elastigirl, voiced by Holly Hunter, is getting more screen time, and I think she's also a nicely well fleshed out character as well. Just trying to take the job without. Well, I mean, this time I think this time Bob knows, but the kids don't. So that's a bit different. I mean, I still liked her, and I think she's quite amusing and her mission is quite interesting as well. Bob is still likable, and he's a very relatable father as well. He has to look after three kids. One has got superpowers. The other one has boyfriend problems. The other one needs help with maths, which it just leads to some great humour from these people. Dash is still entertaining. I still like Dash. He never annoyed me at once in this film. I love Violet. I think it's just probably my favourite. Jack gets the most laughs, especially the scene where he actually tries to defend a rubbish bin, mocking the same scene in a film that he and Bob were watching, and he defends it from a raccoon. That right there, that is comedy gold. The new characters, Winston Dever, I think is quite charming and delightful. He's here to help. He's the CEO of a company that can help bring superheroes back and make them legal again. He's funny, likable. He does play a big part in the film, and I was definitely quite interested in what he had to offer. His sister, Evelyn, is mostly just there just to help out with the gadgets and all that. The heroes, Void, Electrix, Brick, there are a couple of others, but for the most part, they don't do much, but then near the end, they become a little interesting. Especially Voice, since she's a fangirl of. Sorry, there's a fly in my room, but she's a fangirl of Elastigirl. But then we have the villain, Screenslaver. At first, Screenslaver I thought was quite interesting. He can use TVs to hypnotise people and get them under its control. But the reveal of who Screenslaver is and what Screenslaver wants to do can be quite disappointing, predictable, and his motivation actually doesn't make that much sense. As soon as the character actually starts to act suspicious, I knew that character would be Screenslaver, even though the other character I was thinking of, which I won't get into because spoilers, actually I thought it would have been that character, but turned out to be the other. So in a way, fuck's sake. So in a way, yeah, I didn't see that coming, but Still goddamn predictable. But the voice acting is still great. Craig T. Nelson, Holly Hunter, Samuel Jackson as fucking Frozone. Hell yeah. And heck, Edna Mode does actually play a part in the film, and she's still damn hilarious. Same with Frozone or Lucius Best. So, they're still good. Brad Bird still does a funny voice for Edna Mode. All the voice acting is great, especially Violet, Dash, Winston Dever, Evelyn, the Parr family, Lucius, of course, Edna Mode. Everyone does a great job. So with great voice acting, a slightly weak villain, even though we can all agree Buddy Pine is better, and it's a very well developed, likable, funny, relatable, touching, well, I wouldn't say touching, but characters that have heart, and you really love them, even if they were already beloved from the first film. You can just love these old characters all over again. And the new ones have so much to offer, and they play a big part in the film. And I think that's what worked with these characters, old and new. And I will say it again. Sorry, the score by Michael Gajaglio, I can't pronounce his second name, but you know who I mean. His score in here, I'm glad they got him back, because he has his familiar music from the first film, but it's actually far more impressive here. It actually sounds very, very interesting. Especially when it involves Screenslaver, it gets kind of creepy, actually. Oh, by the way, that reminds me, if you guys suffer from seizure, if you don't like flashy lights, and if you get seizures from flashy images, then I don't recommend the film. I mean, I recommend it to watch, but if you don't like flashy lights or flashy images, then don't see it. It will probably give you seizures. 14 years. This might be a little bit of a betrayal, but I kind of like this film a little better than the first one. I mean, it has better animation. I still love the characters, and the score's amazing. The voice acting is incredible. No pun intended again. And the plot's quite original, just like the first one. But the villain's pretty weak. It does feel a little familiar and slightly predictable of who Screenslaver is. There are some jokes that I think are a lot more adult than they had any right to be, and I think that does work a lot. When it tries to tell Violet's subplot, while I did find it funny and interesting, it just played it too much for laughs, but Jack steals the show completely. Although they did wrap up the subplot with Violet's quite nicely, but still, if they took it a little more seriously, then that would have been good. But with all the nitpicks, this is one of the best films of the year, the best film so far of the summer, one of the most refreshing sequels I've seen in years. It's such a breath of fresh air to see a sequel that actually cares. Shut up, Nubs. So, with a great Pixar film, or should I say fantastic Pixar film, I'm going to give it 10 out of 10. And it's also on my favourites list. I don't know if I would say it's better than the first one. Sure, I did put them in order when I had my IMDb list, but it doesn't mean I like them more than the other. It's just I like them all equally, but just in a little order. So please let me know what you think of Incredibles 2, because I'm actually quite fascinated or interested to know about it. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe. And until next time, bye for now.